So health and safety is a topic that a lot of people want to know the regulations and requirements for service accommodation. So this is just going to be a brief video just to run through some of them. In terms of the regulations, there are technically not any regulations around service accommodation at this stage, but that's not to say that you shouldn't consider your fire safety, your gas safety, etc. There are basic things that you should be having if you're letting out a property. And the safety to your guests in general, but in terms of regulations, it's not like your use classes where you have to have particular things approved to have that use class approved as well, such as converting from a residential to commercial or a house into a HMO. So with that in mind, I'm just going to switch to a slide now and go through some of these now. So there are minimum things you do need to require to stay in. So like I said, they're not actually technical rules, but there are minimum things you want for your guests to stay in there, kind of around your fire safety, gas safety. So these need to be carried out on a regular basis to ensure the property is kept in a safe condition for your guests. It's imperative that you look after the safety of your guests. So firstly, EPC, Energy Performance Certificate providing the efficiency of your property, is not actually something you technically need for a service accommodation unit, but all rental properties should be an E and above. This should be the standard of properties you mean. A standard of E is pretty low. So again, when you're taking on rent properties, buying properties, you can return to service accommodation. Make sure the EPC is of a good rating to rent it, firstly, by law. Second, if you are providing to guests, making sure, one, you're energy efficient with the cost of energy right now. Two, that it's keeping them warm and safe going into the property as well. Gas safety is super important. I could not highlight enough the dangers of that. So gas safety record is something you should get from a landlord, as a renter or estate agent, letting agent. If you're buying a property, make sure gas safety is checked on a regular basis. There are certain things with obviously corporate lets that you don't have to do checks as regularly. So with your normal buy-to-lets on an AST, like your electrical certificate needs to be done every year, stuff like that. But your gas certificate should be done every year, no matter what, by a certified gas engineer. But with your corporate lets, electrical doesn't need to be done every year; it can be every 5 years. Whereas nowadays, with rental properties or buy-to-lets, ASTs need to be done every year, unless it's a new electrical. It's got to have a complete rewire, then it's 5 years from the date of that. But like by law, all properties are required to hold a gas certificate where gas appliances are present in the property, and if it's once a year by a gas safety engineer who's registered with the Gas Safety Register Scheme. Agencies you're going to register with, such as Situ, Silverdoor, the apartment network, they want these gas certificates to make sure it's safe. So you really want these in early, because as soon as you go past the deadline, they're going to be making sure it's safe for their guests before they let them come in. And like I said, on a rent-to-rent basis, you need to make sure this is clear. You want to be putting carbon monoxide alarms in your property, testing them on a regular basis, putting it near where the gas is, making sure it's safe in the property for guests to come in. Electrical safety, again, electrical certificate. So this is an electrical installation condition certificate report, so it's long worded. It's basically where it just outlines the condition of the property when it's carried out. So this will be done when it's newly installed, and then it should be done after 5 years the first time, and then every year after that. On older properties, it's every year when you let them out. So again, if you're renting, a landlord should be doing this on a regular basis, but there are rules of around corporate ones which are not quite done as regularly, but if you can get that every year, it's really important to do that. So on all the refurbs we've done, we carry out these tests before beginning to see if it needs replacing, and then basically partially or completely, and they get signed up afterwards. So if you're doing a property where you're converting it and refurbing it, then you need to take it to a higher standard, and part of this you'll do a refurb and rewire the property so it's up to modern standards and meeting these regulations. And like I said, every 5 years is what you do. So PAT testing is really, really important from a service accommodation perspective. Your electrical equipment is going to be used on a regular basis. This is basically where your appliances are routinely checked. When you buy a new appliance, it doesn't need to be done for the first 12 months, but then should be done every 12 months afterwards. And again, it's not that it has to be done, but it's recommended to be done to ensure that things are working correctly. So this is anything from lamps, toasters, kettles, TVs, radios, microwaves, basically anything you plug in needs to be checked. Your ovens can be checked as well. So on a rent-to-rent basis, making sure anything you put in is checked on a yearly basis. Anything new, like I said, is protected for the first year, and it's obviously a year after that. So again, you'll start to realise you'll have to change things quite regularly because they break, or they obviously the wear and tear is a lot more. Get a lot more wear and tear than normal, so you will be replacing them anyway. So it might be you not have to pass test them anyway as often. Person who is tested must be a competent person who's been qualified, certain qualifications you have to take. And like I said, every first 12 months and then it's yearly afterwards. So Legionella assessment is regarding the water assessment. So this is basically, there isn't a reason that a landlord shouldn't carry out this risk assessment him or herself, as long as they're competent. So basically there's certain processes you can follow to do this test yourself. When you're renting a property from a landlord or a letting agent, they will do this test as well and say that it's being assessed. But basically just to check that the water is safe for people to be in there. So most places we live in now are safe, but again, it's just making sure that you're controlling this and checking it going forward. So if a guest was obviously to contract this from the system at home, the landlord may be liable for prosecution. So it's really important to do this, and it's just some basic checks to do this and demonstrate to a court that you have done this. So it's literally like this is the cold water temperature on the water outlets below this is hot water above this, whereas the kind of old water storage tank is a water storage tank present. So basically it's just, this is a basic check you can find online to show you have done this test, but again this should be done if you're doing a rent-to-rent basis by the letting agent or the landlord, but it's always worth looking into yourself. So just do some temperature checks, checking that is meeting a certain level to avoid Legionella being an issue for the individual staying there. Fire safety is a super important one, and a risk in particular with service accommodation, because you have guests coming in there who are sometimes going to break the rules with regards to smoking. The main rules, there aren't particular rules around what you need to put into your properties, and you can go to that website, the government publication Fire Safety Risk Assessment for sleeping accommodation, of what you should follow. The more the better, in my opinion, but as a minimum, fire alarms should be working and tested on a monthly basis. You should have fire blankets in the property. You can put fire extinguishers, stuff like that in the property if you want to, and you can go above and beyond, obviously, with regards to fire doors. And if you're going down fire doors, obviously the hinges, the closers, everything like that need to be fire rated closers as well. So again, this is very similar doors, etc., to what you would have in individual sleeping accommodation or individual rooms in a HMO. But yeah, something to consider really carefully going through your property and fire safety in terms of like fire exits, keeping them clear, make sure nothing blocking them, and just regular tests with regards to your fire alarms and making sure they're working and safe. In apartments, fire door entrance doors to the apartment itself will be fire doors, so it's not like you can just change them for any old door. And then it's just make sure, obviously, again, if they've got fire doors in each room, making sure they're not kept open, that they automatic closers will close. Things like this along the way, because guests will try and prop them open because it's easier for them rather than to open a door each time. So just little things like this. If you want to put fire door signs up, fire exit signs, again, apartment buildings will have these throughout. But again, it's just doing everything you can to do this. But as a minimum, you should be having some fire safety in terms of smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, fire blankets in the kitchens, and if you want little fire extinguishers, etc., you can have. So this example of something we have in some of our properties, we found this at one of the short stay shows. This is a video on a kind of tiny fire extinguisher you can have in your properties. So as someone who's been in a property which has had a chip pan fire, I cannot recommend these enough. It goes up so quickly, and fire blankets, although great, the individual who tried to throw it over the chip pan, it basically fell off because they didn't put it on properly, so then the fire just started to catch the cabinets alight. Whereas one of these, pop it in, step away, it's just the foam's gonna work. You can get little fire extinguishers as well. I've quickly got one in my grab. So they do these as well. These are like little fire extinguishers, again, that you can put in your properties. So again, it's basically for wood, paper, textile, and similar A-class fires, looking for fuel or oil fires. So again, you can't use them everything because there are different fire extinguishers to use, but these are amazing. Saw these obviously at the short stay show that I went to, and really useful to have in your properties. Just have them in the drawer, and if guest does cause any kind of fire, or in your own properties, if it's like your own home, or if you've got HMOs, really useful in there as well. Nine times guests will not be sure how to cook certain things, and it will happen because our fire happened at university. So if you have students, again, really useful. But yeah, I would recommend these in your properties. So that's just a little bit about fire safety and other regulations, and I'll see you on the next video.